When my mother, Margaret Price, died, I thought the hardest part would be learning how to live without her voice. Turns out, the hardest part was hearing it again, in her handwriting. The day I found her diary, the world felt too small for the kind of truth it carried. It happened 3 weeks after the funeral. The house still smelled faintly of her perfume, lavender and old paper, and every time I walked past her room, I half expected her to be sitting there, sewing or reading, humming under her breath.
She wasn't, of course.
All that was left of her was silence. And silence, I've learned, has a way of talking when you least want to hear it. I was cleaning out her things.
Old clothes.
Jewelry boxes. Receipts dating back to the 90s. My mother never threw anything away. She was the kind of woman who thought the past should always be close enough to reach. Behind a pile of blankets in her wardrobe, I found it. A black leather book, tied with a faded blue ribbon. It didn't look special. But it felt dangerous the moment I touched it. The first page was dated May 1989, 6 months before I was born. The handwriting was neat, precise, the same cursive she'd used to write my lunchbox notes in grade school. The first line was a blade I didn't see coming. I saw Daniel again today. God help me, I still love him.
Daniel.
That name didn't belong to my father. My father's name was Edward Price, and I grew up believing there was no man stronger, more honest, or more deserving of my mother's love. Daniel was no one I'd ever heard of. I read the next line anyway, because once you open a door like that, you can't close it halfway. He said he misses me. He said things with Laura aren't the same anymore. He smiled that same crooked smile, the one that makes me forget who I am supposed to be.
I froze. Laura.
That name, that was familiar. My mother's best friend.
My godmother.
The woman who used to bake me cookies on Sundays and kiss my forehead at every birthday party. The one whose husband, Daniel Hargrove, used to toss me in the air and call me little man.
My heart stumbled. No. It couldn't be. It couldn't.
But the diary didn't lie.
Laura is Kind.
She doesn't deserve this.
But I can't help it.
When Daniel looks at me, I feel alive in ways I haven't since before Edward. It's wrong, but God, I can't stop. I slammed the book shut. The air in that room felt heavy, pressing against my lungs. I didn't know what to think, or who to hate.
My mother? Daniel?
My father, Edward, for never noticing? It felt like being punched with every truth you never wanted to know.
I should have stopped there. But I didn't. I read every word.
Over the next hour, I tore through her heart one page at a time. She wrote about meeting Daniel at that little cafe downtown, the one with the blue awning where she used to take me for ice cream. She wrote about the guilt, about praying every night for forgiveness, about how she tried to stay away but always went back. She wrote about how Daniel said he'd leave Laura. How he never did. And how she hated herself for still waiting. The entries grew darker as the months passed, like her conscience was bleeding onto the page. Then came the one that broke me. Daniel told me Laura is pregnant. I smiled for her, but I wanted to scream. I wanted it to be me. I wanted him to be mine. I told him I understood.
But I don't.
Because I think I'm late too.
October 1989.
I was born July 1990. I stopped breathing.
The room spun.
The implication hit me like a gunshot. She wasn't just confessing an affair. She was confessing to the possibility that the man who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike, who called me champ, who died believing I was his son, might not have been my father at all. I dropped the diary. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even close it. A part of me wanted to burn it right there, pretend I'd never read it. But the damage was done.
Once you se trut, you kennt unse it.
I sat there for hours, surrounded by her ghosts. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't sure who I was anymore.
I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't.
I kept hearing her voice, soft, gentle, lying through her teeth. Every memory felt counterfeit now. Every smile, every bedtime story, every I love you, sweetheart echoed with the question she never wanted me to ask.
Who was I?
The next morning, I drove out to the old neighborhood, to Daniel and Laura Hargrove's house. I hadn't seen them in years. They were still together, still living in that same white brick home across the park.
I parked across the street, staring trug se windshield like a covard.
Daniel stepped out onto the porch to grab the paper. His hair was gray now, but that same easy grin was still there. The one I'd inherited. That thought made me sick. I drove away before he could see me. But the image stayed burned behind my eyes.
Strich.
That night, I read the diary again. This time slower, word by word, looking for answers my mother never meant to leave. Toward the end, her handwriting changed. Smaller, shakier, like guilt had finally broken her hands. Edward doesn't know.
He never will.
Daniel says it's for the best. I want to believe him. But I see my son's face and sometimes I can't breathe. I see Daniel in his eyes. And it kills me, because Edward loves him so much. My chest ached reading that. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I just sat there, gripping the book like it was bleeding. I wasn't angry that she loved another man. I was angry that she'd built my life on that lie, that she let my father die believing I was his blood. That kind of betrayal doesn't die with the person who commits it. It infects everything that comes after. The next weekend, I went back to Daniel's house.
I didn't have a plan.
Just the diary in my jacket and a storm in my chest. When he opened the door, his face lit up. "Ethan," he said, using the name that had always sounded too ordinary to me. "It's been years, son."
Son.
The word almost broke me right there. Laura came to the door behind him, smiling, her hair silver now. She hugged me like a second mother.
Come in, sweetheart. You're skin and bones.
We sat in the living room, same beige sofa, same floral curtains. Everything smelled like coffee and sugar cookies, just like it used to. I could barely breathe.
They talked, I listened.
Daniel asked about my work, my house, my life. He laughed like old times. And then, when Laura went to the kitchen, I pulled the diary out and placed it on the table between us.
He froze.
Every trace of color drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. "My mother's things," I said. "You know what it is."
He swallowed hard.
His hands trembled when he reached for it but stopped halfway. "You read it," he said, not a question.
I did.
He exhaled slowly, looking older by the second. "She told me she destroyed it."
She didn't.
Silence stretched between us, thick as smoke. Finally, I said the words that had been eating me alive. "Am I your son?" He flinched like I'd hit him. His eyes glistened and for a moment, I saw something raw, guilt, sorrow, maybe both. "I don't know," he said quietly. "We never tested. Your mother said it didn't matter. Edward was your father in every way that counted."
That's not enough, I snapped.
"I deserve to know."
He nodded.
"You do. But knowing won't make it easier." I left before Laura came back. I drove aimlessly for hours after that. The city blurred by in streaks of light and shadow. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Every piece of me was built on lies.
My name.
My family.
My blood.
At some point, I ended up in front of that same cafe my mother mentioned, the one with the blue awning. It was still there, though it had changed names. I sat outside, staring through the glass, imagining them sitting where I was. Two people falling apart, trying to hold onto something forbidden. I wanted to hate her. But love and hate are too closely wired. Mostly, I just felt empty. I bought a DNA test the next day. It sat on my counter for a week before I could bring myself to use it. Every night I stared at that box, wondering if I really wanted the truth. Because truth isn't gentle. It doesn't care who it hurts. When I finally did it, I mailed it off and told no one. Not even Daniel. Then I waited. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of pretending I wasn't unraveling from the inside out. The results came on a Tuesday morning. Daniel Hargrove, 99.97% probability of paternity. The words hit harder than any punch I've ever taken. I sat there staring at the screen until the letters blurred. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop reading. Over and over. 99.97%.
It was him.
It was always him. I don't remember how long I sat there. Time stopped meaning anything. I didn't call him right away. What could I even say? "Congratulations, you're the father of a 35-year-old mistake?" But the silence between us became unbearable. A week later, I showed up at his house again. This time, I asked Laura to let me speak to him alone. He looked up from his chair as I entered, his expression heavy but calm, like he'd been expecting me. When I handed him the printout, he didn't even blink. He just nodded, eyes glassy. "I always knew," he said softly.
Not for sure. But I knew.
"Why didn't you say something?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Because your mother begged me not to. She said Edward deserved peace.
And she was right.
He loved you like his own. I couldn't take that from him." "You took it from me," I said.
I know," he whispered.
"And I'll live with that for the rest of my life." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall, the same rhythm I'd grown up hearing when I came to this house as a kid. Finally, he said, "I loved your mother, Ethan."
That was real. I never stopped.
I'm sorry that loving her broke everything else.
And somehow, I believed him. That was the worst part. We met a few times after that. Quietly. Secretly. He told me about her, the real Margaret. How she'd laugh so hard she'd snort. How she'd hum when she cooked. How she hated being cold but loved winter storms. For the first time, I felt like I was meeting my mother again, through someone who'd loved her in ways I never knew. He told me she wanted to tell me the truth after Edward died, but she couldn't. She thought it would ruin you, he said. She didn't realize secrets do that on their own. He was right. Months passed.
The anger softened. The hurt didn't vanish, but it dulled into something I could carry. One day, I went to her grave. I brought the diary. The air was cold, the sky gray, the wind whispering through the trees. I stood there staring at her name carved in stone. "I know everything now," I said quietly. "And I forgive you. But you should have told me." I tore out the first page. "I saw Daniel again today. God help me, I still love him." Then I set it on fire, watching the words curl and turn to ash. Some things don't need to outlive their purpose.
When I left, I didn't feel peace.
But I felt something close to it. The kind of calm that comes when you stop running from the truth.
Daniel calls sometimes.
We're figuring out what this new thing is between us. Not quite father and son, but not strangers anymore. Laura doesn't know. Maybe one day she will. Maybe she already suspects. Either way, I'm done hiding from it. Sometimes I look in the mirror and catch glimpses of both men. Edward, the man who raised me, who gave me his name, his morals, his strength. And Daniel, whose blood runs through my veins, whose choices shaped the man I became. I used to think truth and loyalty were opposites. Now I know they're just two sides of the same wound. Because love doesn't always look clean. Sometimes it looks like a lie wrapped in sacrifice. And sometimes it leaves a son standing between two fathers, learning that blood isn't what makes you a man, it's what you do once you finally know the truth. You just heard a story of betrayal, survival, and quiet revenge. If it left you thinking, hit like, share it forward, and subscribe for more true emotional stories that'll stay with you long after they end. Every click helps another story find its voice.